So the name is Remi Bode. I'm originally from Breukelen, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later on. Born and raised here since '93, so I'm hitting 30, the golden 30 this year. And after my time here in Breukelen, my youth, I studied hotel management in Maastricht, in the southern regions of the Netherlands. And I decided that I wanted to have something extra to really build my career upon. So hotel management was one thing, but I decided that Nyenrode was a good destination for round two, which was my master in management. Of course, from living in the area, then you know it's a good university with a good reputation. But it was also a little bit of a sort of a secret box. It's a campus, it's a beautiful terrain over there, but from the outside you don't see or hear that much. So basically, when I studied in hotel management, there were those recruiters, two ladies, and every year I would see them again and we would talk about, hey, when are you done with hotel management and when are you coming back to your hometown? It's like, well, 3 more years to go, 2 more years to go. But that last year they asked me again, so hey, when are you coming? Well, yeah, I would like to come, but I know there's also a price tag attached to studying at Nyenrode. It's not one of the most cheap options in the Netherlands. And for me, that moment, I was not convinced that I could actually afford it at that moment. But they said, hey, we have a business game, and I believe they still do it nowadays. We have a business game once or twice a year. Come over, take a look, see if you like it. And basically it's a competition for 2 days where they invited students from bachelors all over the world. And you would compete in 2 days for a business case. And in my case, that was cheap to company. And yeah, we had to do a business case 2 days with my group, and I won as a group, which was very nice because one of the persons of the group would actually get a scholarship awarded, full scholarship. So that's like 25 or 30,000 euros. So I could almost not believe that I was getting that close. And in the end, there was one other person who actually got it. So I was second in the end. But there was such a good match between me and Nyenrode and by then the dean of the program, that she invited me to Nyenrode to see if she could be of any mean for me. And we decided in the end that if I would do some programs on school and if I would do a lot of extra effort for Nyenrode, I would actually get the scholarship. So it was a bit of give and take, you could say. So by promising to give more effort and more input, I would actually get a quite significant discount on my studying at Nyenrode. And for me, that actually made it possible. So that shows already that the university doesn't look at how many people do we want. No, they really looked at, hey, we like Remi, there's a match, he almost won the competition. That's the guy we need. And I wanted to go there as well because I was like, okay, this is nice, this is business, this is competition. Work hard, play hard was the motto of that weekend. And of the whole study, by the way, actually, not only of that weekend. And in the end, I got a scholarship from Nyenrode to like a 1/3, something like that, which allowed me to come in, yeah. Otherwise, it would have been more of a challenge, I must admit. What the nice thing is about Nyenrode is that you have basically 3 pillars, you could put it like that, or 3 important elements. One of them obviously is studying. I mean, it would not be university without studying. Another one is campus life, so living on campus, being there together, growing up a little bit together as well. The nice parts like partying, but also the less fun parts, which is the studying for the exam weeks together. And you have the student association. And I think those 3, they all demanded equally as much of your time and energy. So studying is actually almost as important as the student association. Those 3, after one exam week, it was time to party again. So there was a sort of you worked hard together and then you were all in the library. Everyone had to study for the same exam week. That's the nice part about campus. You live together, work together, study together. And then when it was done, when you had the exam week, on Friday, it was the end of a block. So we had the block party to close off the block. And then the whole campus, of course, everyone was free at the same time. So it was one big party. But then the week after, we had to organize events again because we also did the open days, or we helped the university with organizing stuff. So it was back to work again. So every time there was a flow, yeah, I would definitely want to do it again. It's almost a sort of a roller coaster with its highs and lows. Yeah, but it's a nice one. I have two examples. First one is actually related once again to my to tuition fee. Because my parents were living in Breukelen, I thought I could save some money by living with them. But I just told you like a moment ago that if you want to have the real Nyenrode experience, you have to be on campus. And it's like 300 meters. I'm actually at my parents right now, so I was actually looking at the direction of Nyenrode. It's 300 meters, but in reality, it was kilometers of distance. And that's very strange if you think about it. So you basically want to be on campus because that's where everything happens. But of course, you have to pay for a campus room as well. So looking at money was one of my challenges. And there was a group of gentlemen of 1958. They studied in 1958. So they're all about 70, 80 years old right now. And when I started studying there, I started with my parents. But when they heard that, they said like, hey, but you're on the wrong side of the river. Eh? You need to be on campus. Eh? De verkeerde kant van de sloot in Dutch. So you need to be on campus. And they asked me, yeah, what does that cost? Because they put money together as a year of 1958. So 40, 50 of those old guys, they all put in money. And they wanted to help students with that money, either with their scholarship. And so when they heard my story that I was actually living on the wrong side of the sloot, they said like, hey guy, that's not going to happen. You're coming that way. And it was a non-refundable. I didn't have to pay it back, non-obliged. I didn't sign a contract. But I had to promise that for the rest of my life, I would do effort to make it possible for other students to study at Nyenrode. And that's why I started to pay into the same fund as them. So that's very nice. It's a revolving idea. I'm paying now in the same 1958 legacy fund, together with other people that also got a scholarship from those elderly gentlemen. So that already shows how tight the community is. That basically you get a significant amount of money from people that you don't know, that you've never seen, but they just hear your story and they're like, hey, we want to help you if you promise that you will help other people in the future. So it's already an amazing example, in my opinion, of how the system could work, how the Nyenrode community works. And I think a second part, and that's more related to business and wanting to build up your career. When I finished Nyenrode, I started the KLM traineeship. It's sort of a graduate program or a sort of a starters program where in 2 years, you visit different departments. And every year there's thousands of people that apply for that traineeship with KLM, and only 3, 4, or 5 get selected every selection. So that's the fact that you get picked is already amazing. And what I did on purpose, is I used the Nyenrode network. I looked online in the database, like everyone who was working at KLM. And I just sent them an email like, hey, could you tell me something more? I didn't want to talk my way in. That's not how it works, but I wanted to get information from real Nyenrodians and people that would make some time for me. So I think I had 8 or 9 different people from Nyenrode working at KLM that I had a chat with. I even visit them as well sometimes at Schiphol and came by. So when the actual interview started, I knew so much already about KLM, the business, the problematics that were there, everything, that even the interviewers, they were a little bit like amazed, like, you know more about KLM than we do. So you can use the network in a lot of different ways, basically. But there's one disclaimer, is that you have to do it yourself. So there's not a line of businessmen standing outside of the gate after your graduation like, oh, here's a job or something. No, you always have to do effort, get in touch. But I think the difference is that people are willing to give you a hand. So if you reach out and you don't and you ask it politely, do you have some time for me, 15 minutes, then even the highest CEO in our network will actually make time for young Nyenrodians. We had the Career and Personal Development Office, something like that, CPD. And there we would have, I think every month we would have actually sort of a lecture on either personal development or networking or how to actually make your CV or so I can really remember that part. So it was from the university, they provided CPD, so the Career and Development Coaching, something like that. And the Students Association, I think, helps even more. Because in the end, if you want to get things done in a student association, you don't have a lot of money as a student association, so you have to be creative. And you go into the village here in Breukelen to arrange sponsors. You reach out to companies to help you. sponsors for the car rally that we do, for the big events. Um, in the end, you are almost forced. If you want to make something out of the student association, you need the help of other people, which also forces you to network and to ask all the generations as well, hey, can you help us? Do you know some people? Who do we need? So I think one part of networking comes from the study itself, so they provide that, and one part is just doing in a student association. I think it's very good to know that if you want to study at Nyenrode, then you have to be aware that you have these three pillars. If you don't want that, if you don't want the student association, or you don't want these practical skills, or getting there, making your hands dirty, partying as well, then you can better, I think, pick a different study, or study online, or I don't know, go to Rotterdam. You have the Erasmus and study business there. I mean, if that is your pure focus of only doing a study to get the paper, do that, you know? But if you indeed want to work on your social skills, your networking skills, bringing what you've learned actually into practice on your time in Nyenrode, basically it's a sort of a safe space where you can try, you can fail, you can try again. There's events that we've organized that we were not very proud of in the end. And if we would have done that in the real world, it would have been cost either a lot of money, or it would have not been good for your CV. But the fact that there is some safe playground, you could put it, that is basically the student association. And of course, there's also the introduction, which almost every association in the Netherlands has. There will be some things, especially for international students, which will be a culture shock, to put it like that. But I've had students in my year from the States, Mexico, China, India, all over the world. They all did the introductions as well, and it brings you together more as a cohort. So yeah, once again, if you really want to study just for studying, pick a university that only has a study, don't go with a student association. But if you want to grow as a person, if you want to learn and do at the same time, and it's more a practical approach, then I think Nyenrode is a very good playground basically to develop yourself. I think a nice example already is we did a TEDx. I think Nyenrode University is something just like a Nyenrode TEDx. And I saw that they did one recently as well, so that's very nice. It's still something alive. And it was funny because normally if you would organize a TEDx, it would actually cost you a lot of effort and time and money to actually get the speakers, right? I think for us the easiest part was finding the speakers. It was more difficult actually to send the invites and invite people, but speakers, we had a lifelong learning as a team. And without problems, we would find entrepreneurs that could tell us about learning, scientists. The network it's so easy to tap into actually. So that was for me a nice example. And I've did quite some traveling, interesting, either in Australia or currently in Italy for the campsite that I want to begin. And every time when I actually go to a country, I send an email to all the Nyenrodians. For example, we did in Australia. It was about 15 that we've sent an email. 13 responded, and we visited 9 of them, because some of them were not on a route, or they were not there. One of those Nyenrodians, we actually lived with them for a while. Some arranged us a job. Others were actually from 1958, and we had dinner with them and talked with them. So on the one hand, it's easy to get in touch with the business world, but it's also nice to, on a personal level, if you are traveling or you need something, or the fact that we actually got a job via Nyenrodian in Australia while we're traveling there, I mean, that's amazing if you think about it. It is, once again, what you put into it, you can get out. But I would say it's easy to tap into if you put some effort in it. I mentioned before that I did a KLM traineeship, which is sort of a prestige thing as well. I was very proud that I would get into it and that I could actually do it, and I worked for management in a big airline company. And I had the feeling that all of Nyenrode, all the people that you know, your classmates from your year, or some of the 1958 gentlemen, that they all expected from me that I would become a manager or even C-level at KLM. And in a way, I think that is sometimes expected from you as well. But what I also noticed during my time at KLM, that I became quite unhappy with the idea of that I actually had to climb the pyramid and go up the ladder, which I think for a lot of people is a very perfect cause and reason for growing, of course, for making your career. But I felt that it had to be a bit different. And where I was first afraid that Nyenrode would judge me for stopping with the traineeship after 2 years, it was actually very encouraging. Like all the people that I've talked with from Nyenrode, like, hey, I think I want to quit with the traineeship. I don't feel myself well there. And everyone was very supportive. So either the people that are still new or from the career development office, everyone was very supportive. And instead of judging on, hey, why did you quit this unique opportunity, they were actually helping, like, hey, but then what do you want? Do you want to work for a startup? I know some startups. Oh, do you want to work for a middle-sized company? Then I know some middle-sized company. Oh, do you want to travel to Australia? Which we did in the end. Oh, then you should visit these and these and these people. So where I was first afraid that I would be judged for not going up the corporate ladder, but actually the opposite happened. There was a lot of support. And later on I worked at a small startup, and then Nyenrode actually sent in some students to help us with the startup with a project group. So we provided a project for them and they helped us with the startup. So in the end, it doesn't matter if you want to go left or right, or if you want to go to Italy, or do actually finish the KLM management traineeship. I think the network is always there to help you, and the people at the university are as well. But once again, if you put in effort, then you can also take it out. It is not a one-way system. It's something that knits together. You also have to help, and you also have to deliver, and then you can take something back. But maybe that's with everything in life in the end.